Speak now. Good evening, Sudhir Mishra here. I welcome you yet again in the Sudhir Mishra show. And we have the second edition, and I'm very proud to bring Mr. Mohit Saraf, one of the top corporate partners in the country, one of the top corporate lawyers in the country. He's no ordinary corporate lawyer. He had a journey which is almost like a movie. And before I talk about him, let me tell you that he was a lawyer about whom very few people were knowing in the mainstream media or the mainstream legal field. But Mohit Saraf, in last 2 years, has become a, a symbol of hope, a symbol of strength, and a symbol of excellence for many legal practitioners across country. Before I welcome him here, I'll also like to dedicate a share to him, and that will actually define the talk which I am going to have it with him. उसे गुमान है कि मेरी उड़ान कुछ कम है. उसे गुमान है कि मेरी उड़ान कुछ कम है. मुझे यकीन है कि ये आसमान कुछ कम है. Mohit Saraf, I welcome you for this talk show, and we are privileged to have you here.
So very kind of you to give such a nice introduction. Thank you very much.
You were born in Bihar, studied in Patna. You were one of the toppers of St. Xavier's Patna, and you had a very conventional journey charted out. You had to come to Delhi. You studied mathematics in Delhi University, St. Stephen's College, and after that you did your law from Campus Law Center. While you did your law from Campus Law Center, it was assumed and understood by the family at large and your friends that you would write civil services, which was a Makkah and Medina for us in Eastern UP and Bihar, and you'll be an IAS officer. You did write that. You were interviewed in 1994 for IAS. You did clear it. You were in the list reserved, and you were supposed to join the services. In between, you also got a Shaurya Chakra. So that's why I say it's a movie stuff when you describe Mohit Saraf. But you know, why we started, we were knowing about your journey, being a lawyer, practicing for 21 years. We were knowing that there is a highly respected corporate lawyer called Mohit Saraf. But what happened during the pandemic, that we were watching a legal battle, I will call it, which had a dignity about it. And then we realized that we all are following. And when we were researching who will be our speaker and why you came, because I'll give another share for this before I come to your journey. जो तूफानों में पलते जा रहे हैं, जो तूफानों में पलते जा रहे हैं, वही दुनिया बदलते जा रहे हैं. Jigar Muradabadi has said. So you actually characterize that. And your journey, when we started researching, it's a blockbuster. And your ethics and your integrity is beyond question. What made you a lawyer?
Sudhir, actually, I just never thought that I would ever become a lawyer. I was doing law as a course to become a civil servant. And then after I took my exams, I did my interview. I was waiting for the result. And that is the time when a very close friend of mine introduced me to another lawyer. And that was the time, actually, if you think about it, that was the time corporate lawyers did not exist in India. And I got introduced. And what really changed my life is that you were living out of a five-star hotel. You were flying business class. You were actually discussing and negotiating with the IAS officer, which you would be after 35 years of service on one-to-one basis. And I just started saying that if I can host a dinner for an IAS officer, which I would be 35 years, is it not worth this a try? And this was an unbelievable journey. And I think I would say that time, it's very interesting. You know, my parents, they were all in Bihar. They were very confused. He said, this guy lives in Delhi. He has a partner who's a Punjabi, and he doesn't wear a black coat, but he flies in business class, and he stays in good hotels. They were not sure what I was doing. And that was a very interesting part that I remember 6-7 years later, my sister went to meet a client of mine to do a due diligence on me, that I hope I was doing everything right. And I would say that is an interesting thing, because nobody knew what corporate lawyers were supposed to do. There were nothing, no transactions. So it was a very interesting journey and unbelievable. Actually, we all come as a first generation corporate lawyer in this country.
So at this note, Mr. Saraf, so many people actually who are writing about this show and who are talking about that why you should be here and you are here, and is because first generation lawyering is a topic today. And you have been saying in all your interviews in last few months, since you actually came out, before that you were a corporate lawyer who was busy in transactions and busy in building the firm which you are part of. But after that, when people started knowing about you, you talked about Indian economy, you talked about the legal profession, you talked about what will be the journey of law firms. So your journey of becoming a first generation lawyer, and a very tough journey. I remember you saying to me when I had a one-to-one conversation with you that you didn't had a dinner at home for almost 25 years. Now, a lot of people, a lot of youngsters, they don't know the actual meaning of habit. What is habit to do with your excellence in legal profession? So what was your initial journey in 90s? What was your routine? What made you believe in yourself, and how your client trusted you so much that you became one of the topmost corporate lawyers?
Actually, to make it simply, I was just at the right time at the right place. I would say that. And then I was very hardworking and very sincere. I remember in 90s, international lawyers would fly in to do all deals. And Indian lawyers, actually, their role was they didn't even have a seat at the table. They would be looking at the international lawyers for a permission to open their mouth. That was a role of an Indian corporate lawyer. It was a very humiliating experience. But I think what really changed was that every international clients, when you have to fly down a lawyer from New York, the temperament is different, the issues are different. And I think we were quick learners. And I remember within a year or so, I was able to replace international lawyers as a sole counsel. And that did not stop. And God was very kind. I think international clients, a client based out of US, actually took me to Bangladesh. I lived there for almost 200 days. I went to Wuhan, lived in China for 100 days and did first power project there. And as an international counsel, hired a local counsel there. The counsel I hired in Bangladesh actually became later on the vice president of Bangladesh. So It was a very interesting journey. It was a very interesting journey that from a support function where domestic corporate lawyers were just doing support function, that I was able to charter a place for myself on transaction law, not only doing deals in India, but did deals in Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, and China, mainland China.
So I'll also like to understand, sir, that somebody has switched on. Yeah. That when you talk about your journey as a lawyer, what is the change you have seen in the 90s, and what is the change you have seen in the 2000, and what is the change you are looking at now? You told in one or two interviews that 2020 onwards you are looking at a 5 trillion economy, and the law firms, which is a part of the service industry, is actually going to have exponential growth, because we still have not even done we haven't scratched the surface. So what do you project as Indian legal sector to grow, and what is your reason for believing in that?
If you look at most of the World Bank studies, I think almost everybody is consensus that India will become $10 trillion. People believe, the most aggressive believe it will be in 2032. The most negative people believe it will be in 2035, 36. So I am very clear that we are going to be a $10 trillion. And I would rather bet that we will be on the earlier side of 2032-33 than later. But what is more important, today we are $2.8 trillion. And we took, 75 years to reach here. So what is important, what you're going to see is that you will actually move from $2.8 trillion to $10 trillion in 10, 12, 15 years. And what it will do is the deal flow, the litigation, the arbitration, in my view, I've read through that it would be almost 6 times the current level. 6 times.
Wow.
The legal bills of corporate will be 6 times from the current level. And that is what we are steering. So really what we have done in 2000 till 2020, nothing. We have done very, very basic. And that is the reason, if you look at one interesting phase, the first phase of India's growth happened between 2003 and 2012. And if you look at historically, a lot of firms in India, a lot of old 100-year firms collapsed and disappeared. Did you see that?
Absolutely.
Because they were not able to compete in that period. In my view, from 2022 to 2032, number of large firms who are not able to grow up and become mature and who do not give up their feudal thinking will all perish. That is exactly what happened between 2002 to 2012. And I'm seeing that same thing. And therefore, what is very exciting for me is that if you are able to build up a system which is merit-based, which rewards growth, I would say, in my view, this next 10, 12 years is going to be crazy, and it will be unbelievable for first-generation lawyers. That is an important thing, because when I came to Delhi, nobody said that who are you related to? I want a platform where first-generation lawyer, they don't need a Maibab. They just can come, and if they are good, they should be able to grow.
Amazing. But, I have to ask you, before we go to the firm which you created and the kind of Natnas you have there who will redefine this and be participant to this $10 trillion economy, because you're talking about a 6-fold growth, which I trust you because you are a pandemic superstar. Because you came before that, you had a very, I would say, mysterious existence, and we were knowing you in the corporate circle as a big ticket lawyer. But tell me, you get 52 crores. The typical belief in India is that you get a particular money, a particular goal you set up, all the advertisements come that you get 2 crore at your retirement and you are settled, you are sorted. What made you start a new journey?
I tell you, it's not a journey. My journey, it's a part of my journey. My journey was always to build an institution which will outlive. The earlier firm which I formed, I actually thought that is my firm and it will outlive all of us. Because I failed there, because we could not professionalize the setup. So my journey was not complete. And therefore, this is really a second phase of my journey. And I believe what I took to build in 99 to 2021, 22 years, I will build it in next 5-7 years, the same thing and even bigger. And that is more important because really at the end of the day, I want to retire, but I don't want to retire as somebody who could not deliver on his promise. Because remember, I hired all my partners in the firm, other lawyers, I hired them from campus when they were 24 years. And I gave them my vision and they are still with me today. I want to make sure that I deliver on the vision and then they grow up to deliver on all our vision, and it becomes a firm which everybody can call theirs.
Yes, but at this time, again, I want this clarification that when you get a particular kind of money and that kind of money, and I know that success is something which you had been witnessing for last 2 decades, you told it right in the beginning. Now you have to tell to this young generation, the first generation lawyer, are people coming from national law school or these smaller law schools, aspirational people, the 22, 23, 24-year-old, that money is not the destination. Because your destination surely is not money. So what is your destination?
And I must tell you this about this money. Why this money is important and it is being used for the right purpose. When I became a partner in my erstwhile firm, my partner asked me, he said, bring 10 lakh rupees to buy the infrastructure. I could not have asked my dad for 10 lakh rupees. And therefore, I had to take a lower piece of shares. So what I've done to this 52 crore is, this is the capital which is being used to fund all capital call of the firm. And therefore, really, I'm not asking any partner to bring a penny. I'm paying them their same salary, increased salary, the bonus. So they are at zero risk. And if the firm does well, they make upside. But if the firm doesn't do well, they don't have any downside. So I'm using this money for the right purpose. Because remember, anything, however good you are, there is a little bit technical risk in my view in the first 1-2 years. And that is what this money is being used. And therefore, obviously, I never fought. I fought for dignity. I fought for my right. I fought that you cannot, under a partnership, throw out somebody who is your founder partner by using armed guards just because the person doesn't belong to Delhi. That is an important part for me. It was a fight for dignity. And the way I was removed from the firm, anybody would have thought that I must have done something so bad that the firm had no other choice. So for me, it was very important that I have to fight for the dignity, and I have to fight. And I'm telling you, there are so many people who have called me from very good firms. He says, Mohit, what we could not do, you did it. Thank you so much. So therefore, I feel that in a way, I was able to do what I could do. And I think my family, my wife, my daughter, my parents, they all supported me so I could actually stage this fight.
And I tell you that this is a terrific stroke of luck that you are doing this journey now, which is making you a inspiration for so many. It's your daughter. It's also the young lawyers who are looking at this. But tell me, what is your typical day like? What is your exercise regime? One thing which I remember about you is that you plan a lot. You plan certain things 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line. I don't want to talk about the professional planning, which you discussed with me. But how do you plan? And what is your exercise regime? What do you eat? How do you socialize? What is your work-life balance? I'm sure work-life balance, I talked about your dinner regime, which was not something which a lot of youngsters will be comfortable with because they want work-life balance. So what are your views about these stuff which bothers legal profession?
These are very interesting questions, but I can tell you when office was functioning from 99 to 2000, when I was going to the office, I would always have my lunch and my dinner in the office. I would never leave the office before 11, 12 in the night, sometime at 4 in the morning. So that was real. The other part is, I tell you one thing, because I had too many partners working with me, I was involved in too many deals. And therefore, I would end up working for many long hours. But that does not imply that every corporate lawyer has to be available round the clock. Corporate lawyers can choose. There are some people who want to do things what normally will be done in 10 years, in 5 years, and they want to work like a machine, that there is a space for them also. But there are people who want to work for 8 hours a day, for 5 days in a week. There is a space for that. But only thing lawyers need to understand, you can take 2 deals, you can take 10 deals. But when you take 2 deals, and if there is a crisis, you can't say now at the weekend. Because I remember my daughter's first birthday, and I had 30 guests at home, and I was on the call for the entire period of our birthday celebration. And that I think we have to understand. And I think I always believe that my wife and my daughter have supported me on that. So I can go for a longer vacation, but they know that maybe Papa has to work for 2 hours on a call. Amazing. And they'll be quite okay with that. And I've been lucky for that. And that is the reason I've been able to carry on this.
So you know this, that what inspiration you have become in last few months. And that's the reason I reached out, and I was feeling so bad that we had so much of smaller similarity, like both of us were interviewed for IAS, and I came from Bihar, I did my schooling and other stuff. And I look at you as a big inspiration now, and I'm openly saying this. And tell me about your Navratnas. Who are the people who are going to redefine Saraf and Partners, and whether they are in Mumbai or Delhi or in Bangalore, where you are looking at. Because you are confident about it, that's why you didn't settle with the 52 crores and just thought that it's time to retire at 55 plus or whatever. So these Navratnas, or those 10, 12 people, what do you think about them, and what is their journey going to be?
I'm telling you, their journey will be unbelievable. And they'll do, I would say, in 5 years from now, they will look back and they realize, they remember, when I was growing up in an economy which was moving from $1 trillion to $2.8 trillion. When they will grow up, they will move from a $2.8 trillion to $10 trillion. Just imagine the gradient of growth. Wow. So these guys will do so well. In my view, they will be ahead of me at the age of 45. Wow. And my key Ratnas are, I would say, Gayatri Roy. She's an expert on data protection, IPR, patent, high-stake litigation. She's expert in that. Then Bikash Jhawar. He is a top banking financing lawyer and also on IBC, the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code. Vikrant Kumar, absolutely, I would say, a delight for M&A transaction. And Vaibhav Kakkar, for, I would say, one of the sharpest brain on regulatory. And Indian regulations are all gray areas. They're not black and white. And therefore, to navigate clients, Vaibhav is an expert in that. And therefore, he actually leads our private equity practice. And apart from that, we have 16, 17 more partners. So I would say everybody, I think these are hand-picked lawyers. Each one is a star. And these are the 4 people who are on the management committee of the firm as well.
Wonderful. Very well said. And this is always has been part of all your interviews. You have talked about your partners. You have talked about the equity which you have given to most of these 20 plus partners who have come with you. And you're also looking at, and you also mentioned that you don't want to compete in everything. You want to do quality legal service, which is a very big distinction. When it comes to litigation, we define a quality legal service, whether it's a Vodafone handling by Dattan Menon or a large arbitration by a large law firm. Tell us more about what do you mean by quality legal work? Because, this expertise comes out of a serious habit.
I remember I was speaking at my erstwhile firm on one of the annual days. And somebody asked me, he said, "Sir, what type of a client you would ever have?" And I said, yes, I will work a small work for a big client. I will do a big work for a small company, but I will never do a small work for a small company. And what I was trying to explain to was that if I'll do a complicated deal for a small company, a path-breaking deal. I will do a small deal for a path-breaking company because I want to use that opportunity to make an inroad to a large company like an Apple. But I will not do any work for a small company, which I believe will always stay small because the thought is like that. And because really at the end of the day, Sudhir, we all have limited hours. And whether it's a routine work or a highest quality work, it requires this fair amount of hours. And therefore, you have to choose your hours right. And in my view, I've always believed that we can actually make world of a difference because we hire the best lawyers. We want to work for the best clients at the top most sophisticated clients. And if we are able to focus our energy into high stake, complicated matters, which are first of its kind, we'll be able to do justice more. Because remember that the minute the work gets routine, I think in my view, that work can be done by a lot of other people in the market. And it will be better for us to move out of that. And that is what I'm trying to do. And again, there are global practices, global firms like that. In India, most people believe that quality is not important. Quantity is very important. Unless you have 30 briefs, then you're not a good lawyer. And that is where I want to change it, that you have 3 briefs, but you feel that you are the top of the world.
So at this stage, tell me a little bit about your litigation practice, because this is something I'm very curious to know which are the litigation practices you are very comfortable with, about their growth, about your projections, how they're going to pan out.
I would say litigation, the entire litigation, arbitration, and mediation. I would say all the three are very important. And I have told my partners, particularly, I think I was not really active on litigation and arbitration. I've done few litigation, uh,
Yes.
but not a lot. But
Mhm.
my personal experience when I was fighting on the Delhi High Court on my matter and the arbitration, I have my view of litigation arbitration has totally changed. So I would personally spend lot of time. I would say almost more than half of my time on litigation arbitration practice, where I feel, you know what I feel, that litigating lawyers are very, very good, but they never appreciate what the client want.
Yeah.
They are, because they become end in itself. And I want to bring that strategy bit, that this
Mhm.
is what is important, and you are allowed. And I think more important is that you, sorry to say that, Sudhir, but most litigation lawyers are not good listeners. And I want to bring that aspect, because they just don't want to listen.
Yeah.
And I think and they don't believe they're in service industry. They believe that the client is in service industry. So I would say that is a big change which I want to bring to chat when
I'll
you
tell you. I'm so sorry. No, no, you complete that. You complete that. I'm so sorry.
no,
You say
because
that thing.
actually sometimes they feel that you feel that the client is in service industry, not
Yeah,
them. And
absolutely.
I want to change that view. I want to
So I'll
change.
I'll I'll tell you something very interesting. There's a particular quote of Major Ghalib on my wall that defines the attitude of all litigation lawyers like me. पूछते हैं कि गालिब कौन है, कोई बतलाए कि हम बतलाएं क्या. They are so full of themselves. That's a problem we all face. That I think you rightly put it. Actually, that is something. But I expected this to come out from you. That your experience in this particular litigation for months must have given you an idea that this can be reoriented, rewired, redesigned, and this can be a very professional category of legal services. Uh, we are in the last segment of our
And I
question.
believe, Sudhir, that
Yeah,
almost half of the revenue of my firm, the new firm, in 2 years will come from litigation arbitration.
very
That's
promising.
the way I
Very,
feel that the
very
growth
promising.
is.
Because typically, for larger firms, for which even for our firm and otherwise also, we have seen that litigation is something like 40% and 60% in the best case scenario. So this is a very promising new thing
And
you have.
most large firm, the litigation revenue is not more than 25%.
Absolutely. So that I never wanted to say that, but you nailed it. Uh, Two small generic questions. One is, what is your opinion about reciprocity about foreign law firms coming to India? That is something, one question. And I also want you to take up the second question. Tell me one mentor in the legal profession. I know you have many people you respect. I know your personal life, you stay with your parents, which is a big thing. You get their blessings on a daily basis. You stay with your in-laws and your parents in the same house. Rare thing. That speaks about the kind of person you are. But who's your mentor in the professional field? And the first question was with regard to reciprocity and the opening up of the foreign law firms
I would
in India.
say, I would say we cannot get to $10 trillion without foreign lawyers being here. Because remember, to get to $10 trillion, we need huge amount of investment.
Huh.
When foreign banks come to India, they bring in their clients to India. When foreign lawyers come to India, they bring their clients. And therefore, this is required. Otherwise, also, if you look at the number of law firms and the number of lawyers in India, we can't handle a $10 trillion economy with the limited law firms we have and the limited lawyers we have. So we need to open up. In my view, if you look at except atomic energy, every other businesses, foreigners are allowed. So you can
Absolutely.
imagine that we have equated atomic energy to law firms. So I would say it's a very I would say this is the right time. Indian law firms have grown up, and it is an important thing for lawyers to have options and for clients to have an option. And this will improve, I would say, the quality of legal offering and also quality of loyalty. On the mentorship, I would say, really, I really never had a mentor. Okay. And I was a quick learner. What I did was that wherever I went, whoever was in the other side, I learned quickly.
Wow.
And that is how I perfected myself. And not perfect, but I would say I improved myself. But I would say that is really the basis. But I would say in the initial bit of my life, and I should not be saying, but I will still say, in my first 15 years of my legal profession, I looked up to Rajiv Luthra, my erstwhile partner.
Wow.
And I actually learned a lot from him, not how to do lawyering, but how to stay connected. But in last 10 years, I've also learned what not to be. So I would say
leave it there.
So I have actually learned both things from him.
But you said that this speaks volume about what you are as a person. On this note, I'll tell you another share, which is one of the last of Jigar Muradabadi. एक जरा बात पर अपने से पराए हुए लोग, एक जरा बात पे अपने से पराए हुए लोग, हाय वो खून पसीने से कमाए हुए लोग.
Irshad.
Yeah. So it is something I feel. Tell me one thing. My last question to you is about your daughter, whose photograph is there on your WhatsApp profile. She is 12-year-old, and she is somebody who is your friend, who is your guide. You talk to her like a friend. You want her to be a lawyer, or you will allow her to do whatever she wants to do?
I really don't want her to be a lawyer. She writes very well. So I've been really wanting her to write. And she's written 2 short stories. And she wants to be an actor. I'm very okay with everything, whatever she wants to do. But the good part about her is she's learned from me that there's no shortcut in life. You have to be very hardworking and very sincere. And she's hardworking and sincere. So whatever she'll do well. But I think I can tell you that when I was out of a firm, and one day I told her, I said, Mahika, what happened if I just never practice law again? He said, Papa, don't do that. Who will take us to vacations?
She is clear. So you never know. So thank you, Mr. Saraf, for this wonderful interview. It's always a pleasure to know you more. And let me thank you on behalf of everybody who's hearing this. You will have a journey that I'm very assured. Thanks a lot for coming on this. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Sudhir Mishra Show. Thanks.
Thank you, Sudhir. Thank you so much.